Under policies and procedures, one of the things that was profound within the community forums is that establishing a task force was very important, and the city was definitely moving in the right direction on that. However, they did mention, a lot of the residents did mention that they are finding that there are some of the same people being assigned to the same task force, to the same committees, and they want to challenge the commission to really dig deep and find other individuals that may challenge different viewpoints. So that stood out to us in the community meetings, and so that was one thing under policies and procedures that they wanted to talk about. The next point, need more accountability within the police union contracts. That was very consistent and very poignant. So nothing further needs to be discussed in relation to that. Arrest disparity study. Residents felt that they were studied out. Okay, they felt that they had enough studies, there was enough feedback, there was enough information out there, and it was time for us to move in actionable, tangible, actionable steps. And so it's time to move. It's enough of the information, now it's time to put action steps with that information. They also pointed out that when studies are done and there are challenges to those studies, that is very important for the commission to reply to some of those challenges, because what is sending the precedent that if there is no response from the city, that challenge may be true. So when there are challenges to studies, it's very important that the city responds in a public manner in regards to those challenges. Under police officer training, they felt that the training is going in the right direction. However, they didn't know what the training was. What are the elements within the training? How often is it happening? Who are the trainers? What are the measures, and what are some of the outcomes of these trainings? These things are not made public, and they would like to have more information in relation to them. Also, they were really interested in actually participating in some of these trainings and being a part of some of the simulations that may take effect. Police officer hiring. Many residents felt that incentivizing police officers to live within the city is very important, and that needs to be revisited again. As well as they want the officers to reflect the community that they serve. It's really important that they not only live within the city of Grand Rapids to understand the community, but also reflect the officers to reflect the communities that they serve. The last theme, body cameras, really dealt with a lot of communication component. The communication around body cameras, understanding how they are used, how they are managed, who has the power to turn them on, turn them off, how are they accessed. And now that we've had them for a little bit of time, it's time to think about how effective they are. How are they having the cameras? How effective is the cameras in having them? So with that gives you a brief synopsis of some of the things that came out of the 5 community forums. And within your packet, page, I believe, 6 through 11, really gives you a more in-depth look at the community forums citywide as a whole. And then the following pages after that really go site-specific. So it's really important that when you do have the time, we know that you just received the packet of information to really dig deep, and really not only understand what some of the voices of your wards have been saying, but also understand some of the voices as a city of the whole have really shared the feedback in regards to. And with that, I'll turn it over to Javier, and he's going to talk a little bit about the evaluation tool on page 51.
Thank you, Anita. So if you can refer to page 51 in your packet, we did a evaluation at the end of each of the city meetings that we had hosted throughout the city of Grand Rapids. There were a lot of things that obviously the residents were not able to discuss at the actual sessions due to time, but we did welcome any feedback on this evaluation. We did want to highlight some of the priority areas that we found at these city's meetings. The first three, there's actually a couple on here, but I'm just going to name the first three due to time this morning. So the first three are communications and community engagement, police officer training, and police and procedure reviews. So those are the three main priority areas that the residents of Grand Rapids had to say, and obviously there's a couple more on here as well. And I did want to mention that this information is available on the city's website for those of you who do not have the packet this morning. This was just released yesterday, so we want to make sure that this gets out to everyone. So if you know someone who is interested in seeing this information, please pass this information to them. And I'll pass it over again to Anita.
Thank you. And if you could refer back to page 3 within your packet, we have the executive summary. And the team decided to put some moving forward recommendations before you. And one of those things is that we really need to make sure that moving forward, that we meet more with the targeted areas, the targeted residents that are impacted most by disparities. We really need to hear the voices of communities of color. And so that was one thing that we wanted to make sure that we reflect within the summary, is that we want to make sure that we have more targeted meetings with communities of color. The next thing is that action plans and the next steps for not only this summary, but also other studies and other community projects that have been done within the city. We want to make sure that these studies are not only addressed, but done in a timely manner. And it's very important that not only the studies be done, but the questions that come out, responses to those are done in a timely manner, and it's made public through various different media outlets that read, see, hear approach. So, lastly, we want to just thank a couple of different individuals. Of course, Commissioner Jones for allowing us and assimilating us and allowing us to provide this new format. The Commission for allowing us to actually do the new format and really sit there and listen to the residents, which is a definitely difficult task to do. We want to also thank Alicia Lack of Little Space Studios, who provided all of the visual graphic notes. This is something different, I think, that allows for not only residents, but the Commission to really get a feel for what the citizens said at each site, at each location. And that was something that her and her team, Alicia and her team, really provided very good detailed notes in relation to that. As the lead facilitators, Shannon Cohen and Rebecca Velasquez Publis and myself really appreciate this opportunity to provide community feedback and community input in this manner. But we also want to thank the other facilitators for coming alongside us and helping us actually implement this facilitation process. So the additional facilitators are on your front cover of your packet. They are CC'd there, and we want to make sure that they understand and that we know that they provided their time and expertise to come alongside us as well to participate in this new endeavor. As facilitators and as community liaisons from the city, addressing racial equality disparities equity disparities is very important to us. As facilitators from the city of Grand Rapids, this is where we live, this is where we work, this is where we volunteer. And as facilitators, this is important to us. It's personal. And so the next steps is very vital, and we appreciate the City Commission taking immediate action on some of these things that we've brought forth. And with that, we'll end. That's all we have to say.
Thank you. Well, I'll add a few comments, and I'll see if the city manager wants to add anything, and then I'll open it up for questions and comments from my colleagues. So I also want to, a couple thanks I want to add to. I want to add thanks to the organizations that allowed us to host within their setting, like Grand Rapids Public Schools. The Urban Core Collective, which has been working with the city for several months now around improving community engagement and authentic community engagement. And then I'll say, your comment about listening, I think all of us who attended the meetings, it really wasn't hard to listen. I think all of us do that every day. It was hard not to jump in and answer questions or correct people. And I think it was hard for us to do that. But I think just being present and listening to the different conversations was really critical for us. This report is a great roadmap forward on how to continue to do more effective community engagement, but also there's a number of really great recommendations in here. I want to point out that in this report, and commissioners, all you see this as well, is that there are a number of questions that came out of all of these different sessions. And I know that a team is currently working on looking at every single one of the questions and answering those questions and having that information available to the community. So every question that you see listed, there will be an answer to that question and information on where people can find more information. So I just want to affirm that from the city manager. I know he's been working on that. I know that some of the questions are already starting to be answered. But city manager, do you want to talk about that with the next steps and what the community can expect after this?
Continuing on the answering of questions, including all of the questions that came up at the traffic stop study and other community meetings that have been held. There are a few hundred questions that we now have on a list. We have the questions and our answers to the best of our abilities. We're also trying to create like an FAQ. Some questions are repeated in different ways over and over again. And we pledged to post that on the city's website. I believe that Link Up will be posting on their site as well by no later than August 20th.
Great. Thank you. All right, so I'll open up for questions, comments, feedback, commissioners. Commissioner Kelly?
Actually, Greg pretty much just commented on what I was going to ask about, and that is because we are doing a website redesign. If we can begin to put these questions and answers, Q&As online, that will be so helpful because we've got a much more engaged community lately, partly because we're growing so fast and partly because of what's going on in the country. And that's a good thing, but it's very hard to keep up. New groups are forming, more questions are coming at us. Most of them are similar. So if we can begin to have an avenue to not only get these up, but to continue to upgrade them and change them and address them, I think that will be very, very helpful. It's something that we as commissioners can point to. There are always questions about how we train, and I think we've got a lot to be proud of, but if people don't know it, and hopefully we can also engage people like Terry Dixon in doing some of the videos that they've done in the past to educate our young people about policies and procedures too. So I'm looking forward to this whole process. And I really, really appreciate all that you have done in terms of bringing the community in and what you plan to do to reach out to communities of color and those who felt that they didn't have enough participation yet. So looking for your good advice on that. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I know all of us saw that piece around communication and transparency ran through. It was a thread that ran through pretty much every question. Commissioner Lanier?
Yes, Javier and Anita, thank you so much for your presentation this morning and the sacrifice of time to meet to put this together and executing it. There are a lot of questions, and I'm fearful that our responses will be quite text heavy because there are so many questions. What recommendations do you have for the city as we're trying to respond to the plethora of questions that we have before us so that we don't do exactly what we were doing before, which is having a text response that's buried on a website and people may or may not see that?
It goes back to the number one priority that was listed by the citizens, and that's communication and community engagement. That was profound. So it's not about just providing that information online and putting it on the website. We have to actually get out there in the community and verbally say what these things are. So you have to have that read, hear, and see approach to all of this information. And so once we do that and not just provide one avenue, then you'll get a broader scope of individuals that are informed about what's going on at the city.
So then do we do the reverse of what we did last time, is have community meetings where then this time we're doing the talking to respond to the questions? Is that a recommendation?
That
or-
is an opportunity. I think at the committee, at the forums, many people did want answers right away.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do that. That's an avenue, an opportunity for us to do that. But we have to, of course, come in with some structure, and these are the questions and answers that we're going to provide to you. But yes, I think it's okay to do it that way with some structure and parameters around it.
Okay.
And I'll add to that as well, and not also responding also just on text, but also these lovely boards that we have here are visual opportunities for people that are visual learners, just to make sure that there's different, how Anita was saying, there's different avenues of communicating. So that's also another option as well.
Yeah.
So maybe enlisting the graphic designers to do graphics of the responses
Yes.
could potentially help.
Yes.
Okay. Just looking for ideas. Thank you.
Avenue.
And Commissioner, I was thinking the same thing, and as I read the report, there's a lot of really great solutions and ideas from every single meeting. One of the recommendations was to have quarterly ward forums. I think we do our our city commission night out every quarter, and I think we're even really transitioning to a new model with our commission night out. I think you saw that at the Kroc Center. I think we can expand on that, but then maybe we do need to look at every quarter, again, working with some external facilitators to do ward forums and provide an opportunity not just to answer questions, but to provide information. And then I also think, and we've said this around this table for a long time, is that we have a lot of partners that we don't utilize that have a whole network of within their neighborhood or within their community. And we need to really partner with them more. Like every neighborhood association, they have electronic newsletters.
Yes.
They have written newsletters.
Yes.
We need to do a much better job of being proactive, and that proactive communication piece and having it be intentional and more diverse in how we communicate, I think was really key. And again, I think there's a lot of good ideas on how we can do that differently.
I like the idea of the commission night out, even if it's just an hour before that, doing something, having some forum where it's kind of open dialogue, because it's already something on the calendar. People already know where it is. It's been communicated and things of that nature. So good idea.
Yeah. There's a lot of good models out there, particularly around community engagement and even how you can have a more robust community engagement process online that I think we can take advantage of, especially once we get the new website up. I think that alone will also help because it'll be more transparent and the information will be easier to find,
access,
as you say, instead of buried in our site. Yeah. Other questions or comments, Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, I'll just say also, I wanted to thank you for your work. I can tell you that this was very different from anything that we ever did. And I think looking through and reading through, I think the graphics actually really helped me. I mean, we read through so many reports that are 5 to 10 pages long and you get lost in it. But I think seeing it really made some of those images stand out. And I think what was really key for me was it was just honest feedback that's there. I know, Mayor, it's tough when someone says something that you know we changed or done, and you're just biting your tongue because you know that that's not accurate and then it's being talked about. But I can tell you that this provides that kind of starting point to say how does these groups of citizens or other people feel, and then really how do we engage more? Because to your point, there were somewhere we could have had more attendance too. So I think starting it going forward. Maybe even us getting the word out that we do these meetings different than we had, because when we were in the depths of not having money as a city, we went out and had these more information dump meetings, which were probably important maybe, but really didn't have a lot of value to people who were there, except if they wanted it. So, I also think it's good for us to get the word out that we're different in how we're doing it, so that we get more interest in showing up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, I think you and I talked about this after one of the meetings. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, we shared that information, 15 months ago, and we expect people to remember it, the details, and we know how much information is flowing at people every single day. And so to me, I had a number of takeaways, but one of them was we need to continue to provide education and information. And just because we do it once doesn't mean that everyone heard that information. So we get a lot of really good feedback about how we need to communicate differently and better, and really emphasize those key points when people have those questions. So, Commissioner.
Just to reiterate what everybody else is saying, but I want to bring it more to a specific point about communication. That's the thing that occurred to me out of this whole thing, is we're just still not doing a good job communicating, not just with police and community relations, city and community relations. I mean, with everything we do, with every department. And so to tie this comment to something that's later in our agenda with the contract with Truscott-Russman, is that it's vitally important that their work produce a very clear, concise, doable communication plan that is specific to address these very issues. I mean, how many times do we have to be told we're not communicating right before we actually do it? So I'm going to be holding Truscott-Russman to a very high standard when it comes to the report that they bring back to us about a communication plan and what that looks like going forward.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
both.
having us.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, and hopefully you all had a chance to read it. I know, though, some of you got the report pretty late in the day yesterday, so if you have follow-up questions, please reach out to the City Manager or Anita or Commissioner Jones, who unfortunately can't be here with us today, but I know that he's eager to continue this conversation and move forward. So that will take us to our next item, and this is a presentation by DGRI, by Chris Larson and Tim Kelly, about the Calder Plaza redesign. And I know some of you have asked me questions about this. This was a design process that took place probably about a year ago in partnership with the county and DGRI and the city, really reimagining Calder. I know we've all seen the billboards, the posters downstairs, and so this is an update on where we are with this. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Commission, City Manager, and others. This has been, I think, a real honor to be able to help to lead this process to reimagine Calder Plaza. We've talked about this in a number of ways over the years, greening Calder Plaza or activating Calder Plaza, and really wanting to think about how to transform it into truly being a better space for people. This is literally the front door of City Hall as well as the County Administration Building, and the way that it relates to our citizens we think is absolutely critical. And so that was a prevailing priority throughout this process, is about that transformation, about the engagement of people, which is a lot about what we heard about in your last presentation. But this was the number one priority emerging out of our budget process. So the citizens that helped to lead our budget process through our alliances made this their number one priority in fiscal year 16. We ran about a 12 or 14 month design process that the mayor mentioned that helped to produce the master plan for conceptual ideas for how the plaza could be transformed, and we're excited to share that with you this morning. But one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that the design we're going to show you this morning is not an all or nothing. It is a collection of a lot of great ideas that emerge through the process, and it's something that also that we can increment or we can implement over time in a series of different phases. So we know that there is some level of question mark that exists in the community about the potential expansion for the convention center, as an example. And so we have thought a lot about that, with city and county leadership, and that's something that we want to make sure that we're providing you with clarity about this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim Kelly now, our Vice President, who led the design effort.
All right, good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Great to see you again, as always. So I want to spend the majority of the time this morning on the master plan that was approved by the steering committee earlier this year. But before I get to that, just a quick reminder of how we got to this point. So as Chris kind of alluded to, this was something that emerged out of the GR Forward initiative. Calder Plaza was voted as the number one priority for needing improvement for public spaces in downtown. And so during that process, we looked at it from kind of a 30,000-foot view, but knew that we needed to get in a little bit more detail before we brought forward any recommendations. So with that, early in 2016, the DDA board approved a steering committee that was kind of comprised of a variety of users, as well as local historians, and then surrounding property owners to really get kind of a cross-section of people that use the space and know it intimately. The steering committee's first order of business was to go through a selection process for the consultant team. So we went through a national RFP search and ended up selecting Design Workshop and Marlon Blackwell as the lead consultants, along with the remainder of the team there. And with the consultant in place and the steering committee created, the first step was to really kind of frame the goals for the process. And so what you see up there is really just kind of a recognition that we wanted to honor the history of the space and kind of the local significance, but then also create something that's welcoming year-round and accessible for everyone. And so the first phase really involved this kind of research, so looking at past plans and past design elements that were on the plaza. So one that was uncovered was this historic pedestrian bridge over Monroe Avenue. Also the plans to originally have a water feature out on the plaza. And then we studied closely how the plaza functions today. And as you all well know, the 300 plus days out of the year that it's there's not an event happening there, it largely looks like this, where it's vacant. There are not a lot of people, I think is the most significant thing. But what we do know is that if there are events, if it is programmed uniquely, we can draw large crowds, whether that be a presidential campaign or a Hispanic festival. The other thing I'll point out is that that lower right-hand image, something that emerged throughout the process was that, this is kind of the center of democracy and conversation in the city and county, and we see a great opportunity to use Calder Plaza as an engagement space in and of itself. And so we took all of those, kind of that understanding of the past plans and design, and then went out into the community to listen. So again, this is something that we pride ourselves on in any planning initiative, is to make sure that we're out there listening and providing unique opportunities for people to participate. And so throughout last year and into the early part of this year, we held walking tours, we had community events. We also were very intentional about bringing in focus groups, so people to participate to talk about specific aspects of the plaza. We also were out, when we were out in the community, we provided opportunities for people to send in postcards for their big ideas. We also had surveys online, both in English and Spanish, again, just to provide a variety of ways for people to plug in and provide their input. Over 5,000 people throughout the process participated, both virtually and in person. And as you see up at the top there, only 10% of those that participated identified being satisfied with the current design of the plaza. Maybe not a surprise, but certainly reaffirming the work that we were doing. And we kind of generalized the statements and the things that we heard into these three main categories. So wanting to provide more events and activities, improving the design amenities, and then also improving access both to the plaza as well as getting in and around the space once people were there. Other things that we heard of interest were, of course, more green and shade trees. As you know, in a summer day, that space can be pretty harsh and hot, and so wanting to provide that contrast between hardscape and green space. In terms of circulation, a lot of opportunities for improvement, particularly on Monroe Avenue. So a lot of people told us that when you're on Monroe, you don't necessarily know how to actually access the space, and so we think there's a lot of opportunity there. And then a couple of other key things, wanting to provide opportunities for outdoor dining, as well as temporary markets, things like permanent and temporary furniture, so that people can enjoy and relax in the space. Food trucks, things, some of those things we're already doing. But the last thing I'll point out is the number one thing that people told us they did not want us to interfere with, or that would be inappropriate, would be anything that visually obstructed the view of the Calder Stabile in the plaza. And so all of that was kind of went into our design thinking and the choices we made. The last time we were here, which was about fall of last year, was we had these three design alternatives put together, each of which had some similarities but also some differences that we wanted people to give us feedback on. And so we went out, had another series of public meetings to get input, and we also did some more focus groups to really kind of tease out those elements of each proposal that people liked. And then we took all of those preferences and voting and turned that into the preferred alternative. So I'll spend a little bit more time on this because this would be the new piece for all of you. So just for orientation's sake, this would be Ottawa Avenue down on the south here. This would be the Convention Center, and then Federal Building to the north. So starting along Ottawa Avenue, we looked at two-waying the street. You may recall this was a recommendation from GR Forward to two-way the street and while still maintaining on-street parking, both for people visiting downtown, but also for food trucks. We think that's an important opportunity to attract people to the space. We did, however, want to look at removing the on-street parking right here at kind of the main entryway. Again, recognizing that this is the primary view shed that we want to protect, we felt that opening that space up would do a lot to helping preserve that view. The other thing to note along Ottawa is that we see it as becoming kind of an event space. So when there is a large event, we want to make sure that it can spill out into the street. And so you'll see in this kind of hatched area along Ottawa Avenue, the idea is that this would actually be a raised speed table so that this can kind of become a space that people can occupy and use. It also helps to function as slowing down traffic, and then it would provide an opportunity for kind of a bleeding of the space out into the street as well as connecting to the spaces across. Moving into kind of the southeastern point of the plaza, this is what was proposed as a shade pavilion with a cafe space integrated within it. We think that's important not only to draw people to the space, but also from a revenue generating standpoint. We think that that's an opportunity that potentially the Parks Department could tap into to find additional revenues. This also still allows for events to happen within the plaza. So one of the big questions that we've received is, are we restricting the space out there? This line right here shows where the existing planter box area comes out. So this proposal will only remove about 2 feet of actual space on the plaza, so we can still host large events. The proposal does include a water feature similar to a splash pad. Again, thinking about how that space feels in the summer, we wanted to provide the opportunity for water to be there. However, we know that if there's an event going on, we want to be able to turn that off, and so that does provide that cross functionality. Accessibility, again, was another key feature, and so we've added in new accessibility ramps, both on the southern and northern edge. We've also included ramps that would allow someone that had accessibility issues to come in and then still experience that view, again, recognizing that it's kind of a paramount feature of the plaza. Working then to the western edge along Monroe, again, wanting to open up the space so that it's more accessible. So we introduced this idea of kind of a grand staircase coming up along here. Proposal for an elevator, and then we did look to add back in that pedestrian bridge that would connect from the plaza over to the convention center. That again really provides an opportunity for cross-programming with the Convention and Arena Authority as they have large-scale events coming in. I'll go and zoom in a little bit here on a couple of slides just to give you a little more detail. This is kind of an overview of the Ottawa Avenue side. And then looking at the Monroe Avenue side, you get a sense of what that staircase might look like, the enhanced entryway. I'll also point out the addition of the shallow depth retail, again, to continue to activate the street. And then, as you can see, a lot of new shade trees and greenery, again, to kind of soften the space, but also this provides some protection from the wind that comes in off the convention center and creates that wind tunnel effect. This is a zoom in of the pedestrian and festival street concepts. A zoom in here of the southeastern corner pavilion, as well as the water feature. And then another 3D view here to give you a sense of what that shade pavilion might look like. The idea here is also that the shade structure is tall enough that you could still put a stage underneath it. Again, wanting to remain a functional space for large events. And then the northeast corner, just kind of this pedestrian path that would allow people to get up and use that space. Perhaps if they came down to get food, that gives them a little more cover. Just a couple more points here. Lighting was another feature that was discussed pretty frequently. We think there's a lot of opportunity to activate the space at night, and we thought about it in terms of having different feels both in the summer and winter. This gives you a sense of some of the precedent image research that we did. And then moving into materials and planning, just wanting to be thoughtful about how the material selection plays into maintenance and things like that. In addition to the steering committee endorsement, we did also receive an endorsement from the Calder Plaza Foundation. Our committee felt it was important that we have that endorsement from a historical perspective. We didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize the status of this plaza in the foundation's eyes, so we were pleased to get that endorsement. And then I will move into the cost estimate. Best for last. The good news is it's all free. No, but we did, as you all know, when you're talking about open spaces, there are a lot of variables that go into determining what a cost is. Some of the characteristics of a high-cost space are, is it mostly on a structure or above something? How many architectural features are there? What's the percentage of hardscape versus softscape? And so usually fall within this high, medium, or low category. Given that Calder Plaza is in fact on top of a parking structure, and also given the amount of hardscape, which is about 2-to-1 versus a softscape, it does fall closer to that high-end category, around $100 a square foot. For context locally, Crescent Park is about $30, and then as you look at Rosa Park Circle, Monument Park, those are up and above $100. So we're not totally out of the ballpark. Obviously, Calder's a larger space than those two, so the cost is significant. Nonetheless, we did feel like we were proposing something that was feasible to be built. And so, as Chris mentioned, and this is the last slide before we open it up for questions, we want to think about this in phases and trying to identify those areas that make sense to piece together. And so we looked at this, the areas highlighted here as kind of a phase one approach. So really looking at the Ottawa Avenue side, as well as that southeastern corner, the Shea Pavilion, the cafe building. This is intentional for a couple reasons. One is the variability for the work that the convention center is doing. We certainly don't want to make improvements that may need to be taken out later. But the other thing is that this ties into some of the capital improvement work that is going to be coming up in the near future. So Ottawa Avenue is slated for a redesign in 2020. There's also an analysis that was incorporated into our study that the existing surface level of the plaza, its useful life will run out in 2025. And so there are some of those near-term opportunities to kind of cross-program with the master plan and design to start implementing the master plan and hopefully move this space into the icon that we think it can become. With that, we're happy to take questions.
The other thing I want to mention before maybe bringing it up fully to questions is that in 2019, that will mark the 50-year anniversary of the Stabile on Calder Plaza. And so as we're working with the city manager as well as county administration and thinking about how we might phase any of these individual approaches, and so we look at this as this series of bits and pieces and parts that we can choose and move forward on or hold off on in the near term, really wanting to create the most bang for the buck in the near term, probably on that eastern edge of the plaza, which fronts onto Ottawa Avenue. That's where we're looking to make some of those improvements and trying to coordinate our activities to help to create some momentum for that 50-year anniversary, but then also recognizing that we have the reconstruction of the roadway coming up, how we can tie into that to make this all very logical sequencing, at least for these near-term improvements.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll open up for questions. I have two questions. Has there been done, I'll ask both of them. Have we done any preliminary studies about potential economic impact? I know I'm thinking about other public spaces that have been redesigned. And so, for instance, I was recently at the High Line, and when they were seeking funds for that, they did an economic impact study for the surrounding area, which helped them raise private dollars. So that's one question. And then my second question is kind of next steps, and if we're going to explore possible partnerships. So for instance, going back to the idea of having like a cafe space, this cafe building, like have we thought about leasing that out and having the owner, or not owner, but having a cafe owner kind of do the build out and other potential partnerships like that? And then who is taking the lead on kind of looking at next steps and pulling partners together around what should we do next, what should be our priority, how do we kind of pull together partners to make it happen?
That was 3 questions.
3 questions, sorry. Yeah. The 2 are kind of tied together.
I guess I'll take the cafe one first. That was a very good conversation at the steering committee level because obviously there would be private sector interest in that. I think that that's an important trade-off that the city needs to, kind of grapple with. If it's not going to bear the cost of construction, then you're likely going to not be going to enjoy the revenue or the full stream of revenue that could come from it. So if you wanted the private sector to do it, then they probably would also have the lion's share of revenue that comes in from it. And so I think that's a trade-off to look at that I think as partners we'll probably all want to explore what the best fit is. As it relates to next steps and who's sort of leading the charge, what we're really wanting to do right now is to understand, I think, the appetites from our elected officials, both at the city and the county level, and understand where there might be debt capacity at whether it's DDA or the city or the county to be able to make some near-term improvements and to figure out how we convene ourselves as partners around the right elements that we can all agree on makes sense in the short term, and really wanting to get those next 2 years of investments planned out right now as we're planning for that 50th year anniversary.
Thank you.
And then economic impact you asked about.
Impact.
I knew there was a third question. Economic impact is one where I think we can borrow from a lot of other public space evolution that's occurred. Bryant Park is one that's been studied heavily, and that's what we think about as a heavily programmed public space and the value that it creates to adjacent real estate. And I think we can look at that methodology and we can look at some of those case studies to be able to provide that level of insight and what it might do in terms of value creation for the property in and around the plaza, because certainly there's a benefit to that. We did have those conversations with members of our steering committee that do control much of that real estate around the plaza and whether or not they should be a contributing partner that helps to really help to boost that value creation process. But I think in the meantime, I think we are moving forward with understanding that this is a great opportunity as a public space, and it can be a much better public space for people. It can help to relieve some of the stress that other public spaces in downtown feel. Rosa Parks Circle comes to mind, and how we might be able to better utilize this for a number of events. And so I think that there's a couple of precedents that we can lean on, and then when we need to do things like calculate induced visitation, as an example, that's something that the counties can be very interested in, is how this can help to expand hotel tax that's collected. I think that's some of the additional analysis we need to conduct.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yes, really good presentation, really nice renderings, and great community engagement. This is phase 1, and it's essentially 5.9. I didn't tally up the ones that aren't bolded to see what they're tallying up to, but how many phases are you anticipating, and what's the total cost of all of it? That's my first question. And the second question is, who owns this property? Is it all city, or is it joint with? So I kind of want to know who owns. And then the mayor got 3. I get 3, right? So,
Yes, of course you do.
so the third question is, do you already have existing partners? So, for example, if we're looking at DeVos Place, do we already have engagement with the Arena Authority to see if they're interested in participating? Like, who's already raising their hand saying this is of interest to me?
Maybe you want to lean on the city manager. Is it a 60-40 split between the city and county?
Approximately.
60-40, with this county being 60 or the city being 60?
Okay.
So yeah, there's a shared use to the plaza itself. I think in total, if you were to choose to do everything, and that's, this by no means is a recommendation that every one of these little elements needs to be moved on, but this is sort of put everything in the grocery basket, right? And hopefully we can afford to pay for it when we get there. But if we don't need the Nutella and the raspberry jam, then we can choose, right? Which one we want to leave out.
Right.
Sorry for the grocery metaphor. I went grocery shopping last night. And so all of this totals up to about $25 million or so in today dollars. Obviously, that changes as you start talking about phasing. But the reason we're not talking about future phases is because we honestly don't know. We don't know what the future of the western edge of the plaza looks like. We can make assumptions about what's going to happen in the next 5 years, but it is nothing that we control fully. The city doesn't control, DDA doesn't control, the county has a big say in this as well. So as we understand what the expansion plans are for the convention center, that is going to tell us a lot more about what the future of the western elevation looks like, and how we choose to move forward at that time might be decisions that we make, as partners 5 or 10 years from now, knowing then what we will know. The other piece of this is, yes, particularly with the Convention Arena Authority and SMG, we've not only had them represented on the steering committee, but we've kept them engaged because that elevated crossing over Monroe really helps to create a new space for people to gather for conventions and other types of large activities. So this is a tremendous amenity for them to also think about how to package Grand Rapids as a destination.
Chris, you should also add that our other partner, or at least landowner in this, is the federal government. And so, the federal building, some of this property around the federal building is federally owned property. And again, that creates an opportunity, but it also creates challenges. They may say, we don't want to do any improvement on this section of the plaza. Or they may say, we do, and we want to be a part of the contributor to that improvement. But again, I think that's a little bit premature. But again, we're not the only ones with land ownership.
On that point, Mayor, I'll add that we did engage with the federal building and the GSA throughout the process, and they did support the ideas. Certainly when you start asking for money and partnership, that's a different conversation. But.
Yeah, and as many of you will remember, when the swing broke, it took a lot of work with the federal government to get that fixed and back up.
So that portion is on there?
That's federal property. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
It takes the act of Congress.
It kind of did. It took an act of our U.S. Senator.
But in fact, the study was primarily the color area, not the area that's in black and white.
No, it's all of
No,
it.
there's some elements.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a different page. This colored area.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Commissioner Allen?
In the interest of time, I'll be brief, but I just want to emphasize that let's just say once phase one is done, utilization, who's utilizing this? And I would contend that it's a lot of out-county residents utilizing this space. They're coming into town for entertainment purposes or completely out of town, maybe for event purposes. So they're staying at one of the hotels, and how many more hotel beds are we having installed in the next 24 months? The county makes a ton of money off of hotel revenue. So I would contend that we need to make sure that the county pays their full way because they're going to benefit from this significantly, so they need to contribute to it significantly.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Yeah, Mayor, I'll just say it's been a long time coming, and it looks like it'll be phased, so it'll be a long time as it gets going, right? So this is going to outlive some of what work that we do here, certainly me, but all of you as well. So I think one of the things though, that really makes sense is at least structurally how you're looking at this, meaning what's the first priority that we have and how do we engage the street and that work. I think that's smart. I think having it be led really by your group makes sense because it really is going to impact and automatically increase property values downtown. To have the asset that's here from the city general fund share. I know, Mayor, we talked about maybe 5-6 years ago as we look to shrink the real estate that the city has within the city, is that those opportunities provide usually a windfall of cash that can be used for kind of a one-off project that's there. So I think that's ultimately probably where I see long-term, funding source for this, because I don't know what we squeeze out of what we're doing now, and I don't know how we don't invest at the same level in some of the neighborhood parks that still need a phase 2 or a phase 3 to continue on there. So I think it's going to be multi-layered, and to your point, there's probably already foundations and things that will be part of the cake that gets baked into what's here. But I ultimately think there's an opportunity for us, as we look at how we what real estate that we want to have in the city, that we reinvest back in this asset. Because I think to the point that this is something that's kind of that, city core gem of what's here, and it's, it's the city, it's the, county overall, and to be quite fair, it's the feds that first got us to this spot. So I think that there's the legacy of getting that art there, and the legacy of how all that came about, that's really going to take all three of us.
Yeah, and it's the symbol of our city.
Agreed.
Calder. Any other final questions or comments? Then I'm going to move on here.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. One is, I'm just curious, we talked a lot about how we needed a certain number of residents to move downtown before we got a grocery store. Unfortunately, we're getting one sooner than we thought, not very far from us in the west side. But how important is that component to these phases? And then the other question is, have you had any conversations about what happens in that space in the winter? Because I know you've done a lot of thinking about that downtown.
Yeah, so I'll take the first one, and I'll probably put on the second one. As it relates to critical mass, which is the term that we utilize to talk about basically generating enough economic momentum to be able to support different forms of retail, I don't know that that conversation translates directly to this context in terms of like a recreational context. While downtown residents have, I think, a small shortage of available park acres on a per resident basis, the lack of open space or access to open space is probably not at the top of the list of real challenges. And so as Commissioner Allen alluded to, this is really a space that exceeds just the surrounding context for utilization. It's a super regional destination for a lot of major events, and so it serves a much larger context. So I don't know it's necessarily as related on the economic basis.
And then on the winter programming, with any design process that we're going through now, we want to think about the space as 12 months out of the year. And so we looked at opportunities for winter events, certainly in the main plaza area, but also what would be the southwest corner here. We saw that as an opportunity for respite. There's a shade pavilion. There was the idea of potentially adding in a fire pit or something so that people could come there and congregate for an event. But again, those were the ideas that emerged for the plan.
You were talking about the wind study as well?
Yeah, one of the aspects of the planning was looking at doing a human comfort analysis, and so not only the sun and the harshness in the summer, but in the winter, those high-speed winds that come off the convention center, a lot of the trees and some of the structures that are placed, particularly on that western edge, were put in place to create a buffer from those winds. And so hopefully that if it's not such a wind tunnel out there, if it's a little more hospitable, that in the winter, even if there's not an event going on, that it becomes a space that people are more likely to congregate.
Yeah, you can get along the way out there.
And now that we can allow fire pits in the city, in the winter, we can have fire pits out there.
You got to get DeVos, please.
All right, I'm gonna close this up. City Manager, any final questions or comments?
So what this leads to is we'd like in the coming months to bring forward proposals to begin work on the east end of the plaza. As Chris said, we'd like to, the stage area, the restrooms, those kinds of things are particularly important, we think, and like to maybe have those done in time for the 50th anniversary. So that's something that we will take and that you'll have to look, and we'll try to figure out funding and see how it fits into your priorities.
Yeah. All right.
Okay?
All right, with that, close this up. Thank you both. Appreciate your work. Thanks for being here. And speaking of events, we will go to our first action item, but third item on our agenda this morning, and that is a resolution approving the 2017 request for Art Prize sponsorship. Can I get a motion?
Support.
All right, and Josh Nearmore is here to tell us about this.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. So attached is a resolution approving the city's $65,000 sponsorship for Art Prize for this year. So this total amount includes $15,000 to support the African American Arts and Music Festival in Calder Plaza, as well as the value of in-kind contribution for extending DASH services on the weekend throughout Art Prize to continue to have people enjoy that amenity and circulate to enjoy all the public art. And just wanted to point out that Art Prize continues to grow and bring significant amount of revenue to the city, to the parking system over the course of that. So we're here to recommend supporting a sponsorship of this event again this year.
Great. Thank you, Josh. So, Commissioners, you'll recall we've done sponsorships in the past for Art Prize, and I think we're all well aware of the economic impact that Art Prize has on our city. I think the latest numbers were well over $20 million. And we're really excited to see the African American Arts and Music celebration continue. And I know some of you were really instrumental in getting that off the ground, so thank you for that. Any questions or comments about this? I know it was reviewed at our Parking Commission, although now that's called Mobile GR
Yes.
Commission, and it had unanimous support there. Any questions or comments for Josh? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, thank you, Josh. Next, that will take us to a resolution approving the request from Brass Ring Brewing Company, LLC, for a microbrewer and small winemaker to be located at 2404 Eastern Avenue.
So moved.
Support.
All right, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On June 1st, 2017, Brass Ring Brewing Company, LLC, submitted an application for new microbrewer and small winemaker licenses. These are to be issued at 2404 Eastern Avenue Southeast. The application has been reviewed by the required departments and is being recommended for approval.
All right. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
I'll just add, I know You guys have a lot of breweries over in First Ward, and the second ward or third ward was jealous, so now we have one coming. Third ward. We've been talking about this with the Southtown SID. It's in Alger Heights, one of our business districts, and they're excited to have this brewery coming.
And we will all be there for the grand opening.
There you go.
So,
Wine.
yeah, it's nice to see this. Any other questions or comments? No. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, Commissioners, so I jumped right over 4, probably because Josh touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to take us back because it has a formal resolution. So in addition to the Art Prize sponsorship, there's a separate resolution authorizing the funding to support the Diversity Awards in partnership with Art Prize. And this is actually not Josh, it's Tom Almonte. Support.
Thank you, Mayor,
All right.
Commissioner.
I got motion and support. So, sorry, Tom, I skipped right over you.
No.
I just bundled that all into
need.
one. So I saw Art Prize and just
I know.
took it
And
there.
you're going to see a lot more Art Prize coming up.
I know. So sorry about that, Tom. So this,
No need.
this is funding for the Diversity Award. So you want to tell us about this?
Sure. As you know, this is the second year that we, as part of our partnership with Art Prize, we have an award to recognize the African American community. This year, we expanded the award, and we include, as we partnership with Art Prize, to include the Artista Latino Award. This was given last year, so this will be the second year, and the resolution here support an investment for both of those awards as part of our prize. Here, we have members of the board of the African American board and also Roberto from the Hispanic Center. So I just want to say thank you for the work that they have done related to this.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thanks. All right, Commissioners, any questions about this? I think all of us participated in some way last year, and I know we all saw and viewed all of the art. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Thank you, Tom. And Tom, thank you for your work on this as well. Thanks. All right, next that will take us to a resolution authorizing certain special events subject to Chapter 53 of the City Code.
So moved.
Support.
All right, and Ms. Yvette is here to tell us about this.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor.
Morning.
City leadership. So the summer is buzzing along really, really well. We have had so many events, and it's just wonderful. It's wonderful to see the new events that want to come to our city and the reoccurring events that still want to do business with us and want to occur here. So we're excited that to bring forward our August events, and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, Commission, who's first? Oh,
Just
City Manager?
remind you,
Yeah.
Mayor, recall last year we changed the process so that now monthly Yvette will bring forward a list of events seeking exceptions to your normal rules. The exceptions typically are for time or for alcohol.
Okay. Yeah.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Yvette, for not only doing this, listening to us, and then doing all the hard work along, I think, with Tom, to try to open up events to groups throughout the city, which is one of the mayor's goals. And I know you put together a video, which we watched recently, to make it clear for people to do that. I just have one question, and that is, because we're always focused on continuous quality improvement, are we also getting any kind of feedback from people now that we've made some changes so that they have an opportunity after their event to talk about how well we did it, or if we need to streamline, do a better job of that?
Yep, absolutely. We have a Survey Monkey that we put out after every event, and we ask our different event planners or organizers to give us feedback. We try to keep it short so that they'll be willing to do it. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a lot of response because everybody just sends an email and says, "You're doing great." And we say, "Well, thank you," but we want to know some specifics, and different things that we can do to improve. So we're working with Becky Jo Glover and 311 to come up with a better way of doing a survey through our website for event planners and event organizers.
They're probably exhausted by the time they get done with their event.
I think I am.
Thanks.
Well, and I'll add two things. One, Yvette has partnered with DJRI, and they're doing classes for people who are interested in doing events. And I know over 200 people have gone through those classes where they've learned on the front end the process and what makes for a successful event and what we can do to support them. So thank you. I know that's really above and beyond, going above and beyond. And then secondly, in regards to the website, I know one of the first things we'll have up is a process, an online process, easy process that people can go through to organize and coordinate events. And hopefully that will spur more events in our neighborhood parks as people can see availability and how to check out at pavilions or reserve space. So I'm really excited to see that launched to the public. So,
Absolutely.
Commissioner?
I just have a quick question. I was trying to find out last week some specific times for National Night Out, and when I saw this in the packet, I thought, okay, maybe Yvette has the times. Not that I don't care about your wards. I'm more specifically wondering about 3rd Ward, so I'm trying to coordinate my tour. So if you can email that would be great, so that you don't have to rattle them off right now. That would be awesome if you have those times.
I'd like it too.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could send that out to all the commissioners, that would be great. Send it to Commissioner Lanier first, and because that is, there's so many events that night. It's really hard to coordinate. Some of them start earlier in the day, some go later. So
Would you like
I'm
a
with
Google
ya.
map showing you to get to?
Yeah, if you can map it out in the distance.
Thank you,
And
City
give me an
Manager.
Uber.
Oh, man.
or a dash to take you around.
Take you around, a limo driver.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It carries. All right, thank you. And the other thing that I think would be helpful, and maybe this is already on somewhere and I just can't find it, it'd be really nice to have a calendar of all of the different events that people can go to and see. I know we all get questions about when events are, so that would be.
Like on the website.
Yes, that would be ideal.
Great.
Yeah.
So there is a tab under the current website right now that has about a 2-month view on the calendar, because that's all that it will support. But with the new website, we're hoping to have the full year up.
Great.
Nice.
Wow,
That would be
nice.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, with location and time and who is coordinating it.
Exactly.
Very nice.
Take care.
All right, thank you. We are all so eager for that website. Are you hearing that, City Manager? All right, so next that will take us to item number 7, and this is a resolution authorizing execution of a contract between the City of Grand Rapids and Truscott Rossman. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, City Manager, you want to talk to us about this? I know that you have worked on this, but then also you've been in conversations with Commissioner Jones about this, and I know he's weighed in and provided you with some feedback.
In fact, this is, as you all are aware, it's been a long time coming. We went through quite an extensive process, and most recently, Eric DeLong and I met with John Truscott and Trainee Thames, who will be would be our account exec if you were to approve this contract. And this is resulting from an RFP process where we had an employee team work to select this vendor. But you're also aware that last April, we had some emergency communications work done by Truscott Rossman. So what this contract would do would be to resolve those outstanding invoices incurred in April, as well as establish a ongoing relationship with them over the next year. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, so questions, commissioners? All right. I'll go Commissioner Allen and then Commissioner Lanier.
So when I first got this, I was actually going to vote no, because we as a commission have been talking about our communication issues with the city for well over a year, and our concern for it. And so the conversation has centered around, do we bring in a firm? Who do we bring in? I am going to vote yes for this after talking with Commissioner Jones, because A, that's his area of expertise, and B, I understand he's been working very closely with you on the developing of this contract. What's important to me as a commissioner, and I just want to get this out as related to my yes vote, is this, it's a 1-year contract I'm hoping that what we'll see out of this is a strategic communications plan. I'm glad to see, I read Trainee's background, and I understand also the Truscott principal from Detroit will be coming over quite often and help the city of Detroit with some of their communication plans. It's important that we have a communications team that understands minority voices and minority perspectives, and I hope that they'll bring that to it. What I'm hoping to see out of this is a long-term plan. In other words, this is a city that's changing fast, so this is how your communications team, or this is how your communication strategy keeps up with those fast changes, so that we can get ahead of and craft our message rather than have our message crafted for us. Because too often we're reacting to things as opposed to being proactive and communicating clearly on things. So I'm going to hold this. It's only, I'll say the word only. It's only $60,000. It's only $4,000 a month retainer, but I'm going to hold that to a very high standard. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I want to see what's coming out of this, because I truly believe this is a major issue for our city. And we as a city commission are responsible for communications. We've been elected to oversee what's going on in this city, and we're not communicating well, and I'm frustrated, and I'm hoping to see something from this team that will relieve some of my frustration.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I'll add to that, because I couldn't agree more. And a couple other expectations will be to do an internal audit, because there's a lot of different fragmented communication coming out of different departments, and even knowing internally who all is doing communication for the different departments and how that's going to be coordinated, I think is critical. The second thing is, I've talked to a number of other mayors and then talked to some cities that have worked with Truscott-Rossman, and I think having somebody with expertise that knows what is working for other public entities and other cities and can help provide some insight into that, I think will be valuable. And so my hope is, there's a laundry list of things that we're hoping we'll accomplish with this, but I agree the standards are high and we need clear deliverables, and we need a really clear plan and internal audit and what is the best structure moving forward to respond to the ever-changing world of communications.
But internal audit's not written in one of the bullet points. I just want to point that out.
Right.
So.
But
we should,
plan was, and I'll make sure.
Right, I was going to say, because I actually, that's a good point. We should make sure that that's added. I think that needs to be done in order to come up with a plan.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying it's not.
City Manager, are you writing that down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Linehan.
Which actually brings me to my question, because even when you look at this, it doesn't say that there will be a communications plan either, just as much as it doesn't say there will be an audit. So City Manager, I'm curious from you, because you'll be the one, you and your staff will be the ones having conversations with Truscott. So what is it that you're communicating to them so that we don't have an expectation that could potentially never come to fruition? So I'm just curious to know what conversations have been had. What is it that we're expecting? If they do their job well, what is it that we should see as an outcome of that from your perspective?
Well, two things, Commissioner. First, I think one of the early things that we should do is have a meeting with Trainee and all of you so that you can get to know her and feel comfortable contacting her on any issue concerning communications. But if you note, the very first bullet on the cover memo is to craft and develop a strategic communications plan. In fact, that was the centerpiece of the discussion that I had with John Truscott and Trainee Thames, was that
you must be looking at something that I'm not, because what's on the screen. Oh, you're looking in your memo.
Oh, in the packet.
Okay.
So in the memo that is in the packet.
Okay, I'm just looking at the screen right now, but okay.
Okay. At any rate, it's not that we don't have ongoing communication needs that they might have to address, particularly if we had another emergency. But what is foundational for us to really transform is the notion of the plan. Mm-hmm. And so that will be a preeminent outcome that we need to have come out of this firm. And I have as well added the notion of internal audit, because I think the coordination of our work is probably almost as important.
And Commissioner, follow up on that. If we approve this today, one thing I said to the city manager is that they should actually meet with each of us and get our opinion about what our strengths are, but also what our gaps are. I think that's going to be really critical.
So what does a strategic communications plan mean to you, city manager? And I'm asking you because I know I've seen the end of this story. You know, we start this process, and what we think we've said or communicated may not be the outcome, but you're comfortable with the outcome, and we can't blame you for being comfortable because that's what you've communicated. So what would it entail? What would be the content of that?
Well, also being familiar with earlier stories like that, I want to make sure that you are comfortable. So that's why I do think it's important up front for you to meet so that we can jointly set expectations. Having said that, what I think, for me personally, the way that best describes this is this whole notion of branding. Okay. It's really about consistent communications pointing in the same direction from multiple different sources about multiple different departments and services, kind of continually coming. But it's the coordination, and you know that the mayor's pointing to that as well. It's the coordination of, it's not a single message, but it's a single brand. It's the way that we move forward together. And that's really what we have never been able to pull off in the organization. I think that we have had moments of very strong communication, but never really linked and never creating that single City of Grand Rapids brand.
So this time, what is it that we're planning to do differently? So we've had external consultants before who has worked on communications with the city in the past. We've had staff people who are designated specifically to communications. What is it that we will do differently in order to see different outcomes if you're saying that we've never had what you're hoping to get this time?
Well, in fact, I'm not recalling when we've had external expertise come to assist us like we would be made available to us through Truscott-Rossman, because not only would we have trainee to serve us, on a daily basis, but we have access to the entire firm. And so I think what will really be different, Commissioner, is that we're going to have some expertise, and you're not going to have staff doing our best. Not to say that, we are without skill, but I think, as the mayor just clearly pointed out, these are folks that are working with local governments across our state, and they have a very positive reputation for doing good work. And, if this doesn't work, we'll go in another direction. But, we're looking at some of the best, and so they ought to be able to help us.
Are you looking at, and I'm sorry, Mayor, but this is really important to me for all the reasons that Commissioner Allen described. We've been toying with this for quite some time. Do you anticipate that Truscott will have some interaction and involvement with communication pieces that come, so like the mayor suggested, from multiple departments? So in my home, when I get information from the city for whatever reason, should I anticipate and expect there will be a change in that, in practically everything that's coming from the city as a result of this? Because that's what I think when I think about revamping our communications plan. I think about every single touch point that we have with constituents and anyone outside of the city. There should be a change that they're experiencing as a result of this. Are you thinking along those lines?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I see John Helmholt out there. I don't see you shaking your head, but I think you're reading something.
I didn't know he was out there.
So I'm going to go to Commissioner Schaefer and then Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah, Mayor, I'll just say I think the reason, Greg, why you're probably getting the questions that you are is that we're at a spot where we need to try something new. And so I think that this is a step that we have, and this isn't multi-year, this is single year, right? So in essence, if this doesn't seem to be a strategy that works for us, then we have to pivot and do something different that's here. I think the concern that I have is ultimately who still kind of has their finger on the button before it hits send, because when you're in a time, there are times where you need to be very timely, and you have to empower, whether it's who you're contracting with, whether it's staff, whether it's who. I just want to know, I guess, or maybe this process will let us know who at the end of the day gets to say yes as that gets sent, because there are things that will get either logjam or will miss the opportunity. I think overall what you heard from us is that there's positive things that the city is doing, and those don't seem to be stories that are out there. Or for instance, there's a letter that everyone gets that they need to get a inspection for they have a sprinkler system in their lawn. It needs to be done within 30 days. Yada, yada, not sharing that maybe it's a state DEQ mandated thing. Here's more information that you can find out. So I think all those points that, touch through still feel like it's, insensitive or doesn't understand or doesn't take time to really get after, how do I find out more? And I think that's if you're looking for what we're looking for, I think is we're saying, how does every interaction and point feel like it's part of my city as opposed to feeling like this? And I think that's ultimately probably that, but it's going to be so important through this plan to figure out who ultimately is able to say yes to get that out, and how do we all kind of figure out how fast that goes. And I think that's going to be the trick and the challenge with this contract, but hopefully that plan will figure that piece out for us.
Well, I think one of the big learnings we just talked about this morning, and that is from the community meetings we had, but also Mayor mentioned earlier our work with the Urban Core Coalition. We are learning about different needs in our communications, and I think we are evolving, and I think it's a different world. It used to be we communicated with news releases and news conferences, period. And that doesn't work anymore. And so it is a different world. We have a website coming online. I think I don't have all the answers, but I think our contractor's going to have many, if not all, of the answers to help us move forward. And I think it's to create that comprehensive approach so that everybody gets it when the node's coming out. They don't even have to read the word City of Grand Rapids. They're gonna know it's from us.
And going back to what Commissioner Lanier said, I feel like we've been talking about letters from the city for years. From when I was a commissioner, we served together on CD. I'd like to see that move up on the priority list, but also I think now as the website starts to roll off, I think Becky Jo Glover can really be key in making that happen. But I know she's really stretched right now with the website. But we can, again, those are the things that I think we need to be really clear about with our expectations on where we as a body, what we would like to see improved and where the priorities are. So Commissioner O'Connor?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this here, and we have a contract proposed for $4,000 a month, which is 22 and a half hours, and we're going to drive somebody from Detroit, halfway across the entire state, to come into this city and try to communicate and create a strategy around how we communicate better with the people that live in our city. And as we know, communications, like politics, is a game of relationships. And so each and every one of us represent diverse groups of people in diverse neighborhoods and areas of our city. And so in what is essentially an equivalent of a part-time job, someone is going to come in and try to reorganize the way in which Grand Rapids communicates. We have a significant amount of resources currently invested in a communications team in several of our, here in this building and at the building at the corner of Fulton and Division. And then we're going to layer on up what is essentially another part-time employee to try to figure out that doesn't know Grand Rapids, and it's going to take, if we're going to have 7 meetings with each of us with that person to try to determine how, in fact, we communicate better. There goes the first 22 and a half hours. So now we're a month before anything else happens. This seems like a Band-Aid approach to It needs to be a bigger, more comprehensive solution to communications, and we need. I think someone that has a better grasp of Grand Rapids and the players and the folks in the me in just how to do it. It needs to be someone who's here, who's vested here, who understands this amazing place. So I'm still not convinced that I can support this.
So, Commissioner, I'll let City Manager weigh on this well. I had a conversation with Commissioner Jones. I'm really disappointed he's not able to be here today, but he had to go out of town. And I specifically talked to him about his thoughts specifically with this item. And, Truscott does have a presence here in the city. They do have people who are from the community. They have a full team. The value, and again, I want to try really hard not to speak for people, but my understanding is that one of the values of having an individual from Detroit come over who's part of the larger team, because Truscott has a statewide presence, is that they've worked directly with other cities and can provide some insight about what has worked with other public entities that have multiple departments and communication coming out of the multiple departments and how that can be coordinated in a way. The reality is that we have a lot of assets right here internally, as you said, and figuring out a good structure for those is really critical. And I think there's been a number of areas where we have failed, and I think that's been part of the failure, is having that kind of structure put in place. And the value of having somebody that has the expertise and how to do that, I think, is really important. And again, this is short term. We can have some clear indicators and deliverables, and we can really measure progress pretty quickly. And that's really why I'm going to support this, because I feel we need to do something. We've been talking for too long that this continues to be a major issue with pretty much every single department. And I feel like we need to do something sooner than later. And this, I believe, is a good next step. And we can always revisit it and make a change. Commissioner Kelly, and then I'll allow City Manager to weigh in, and then I'll call the question if no one else has any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is a very good discussion, because it's certainly a high priority, not just for the people around this table, but clearly for our community. I think that what's key here for me is that I almost look at this as a pilot program, that we've got a 1-year commitment with obviously option to continue with this firm or another. But I think I look at the second point, identify key goals and objectives. And to me, that is, I know it's very broad, but that's exactly what I think that we're all trying to do here. I echo Commissioner O'Connor's comments about the fact that we really need to have a person or a group with a deep understanding of this community we live in and all the different groups and even individuals in it, our different neighborhood associations. It's never one size fits all. We certainly want a brand, and we have some things in common in this city, and hopefully we can begin to pull people together around certain themes. But we absolutely have to have somebody who's a deep understanding of the groups that have been around here for 30, 40, 50 years. And we've seen that need just in the last year or two, because we are influenced, of course, by what's happening on the national level here in our city with, for example, police and community relations. So I think that structure can help perhaps do that. So you have both that outside look and then working with us inside here. And I would like to suggest that in order to speed up this process, again, to Commissioner O'Connor's comment, about the time that it takes to get things going, that if we could perhaps as commissioners begin to weigh in with the mayor and city manager on what our personal priorities are, so that that can be uploaded immediately to Truscott, because we've all got some very specific and probably much in common concerns about what's been missing and information from our own community that what they're telling us that they want. So hopefully we can speed it up.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Kelly. So,
yeah,
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, just to make this work well, because I think that what won't work well is if we move forward and we're split. and I'm sensing a little bit of hesitation, or at least some legitimate questions that were asked. I guess the one question that I want to ask, just maybe of the manager or us as a body, is when we look at what's on the screen, I want to make sure that we're not making a $60,000 go forward decision of who to use and how to use it based off of a $5,000 April bill. And I think that is some of the concern here, and I think when you kind of flesh out some of those details of how does this work with staff and how are some of those other questions that are there, is if that's the case, and maybe maybe those questions were answered and worked out, but I haven't heard that yet. And I just want to make sure for us to really all buy in and how important that we talk through it, is either to wait, until we get some of those answers back, or at least allocate, because I know we have an outstanding amount that we allocate, and then do we go back out? That's just a thought I wanted to throw out, because I just want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up really good and all on the same page, because if we're split, I just think it's going to fall apart.
Yeah, that's a good point, Commissioner. So is your recommendation then to approve the payment for the outstanding bill?
Yeah.
And then table this to our next meeting, because I personally think this is an urgent need, and we need to move forward on doing something different as soon as possible.
Agreed.
And in the meantime, our next meeting isn't until August 15.
Right.
So perhaps in the meantime, we could each have an opportunity to ask the questions that are outstanding for us, but also maybe get some additional input from Truscott Rossman. And then we can bring it back with the $55,000 at the August 15th meeting. And then Commissioner Jones would be able to do that as well.
I think it's important he's here as well, too. in my opinion.
I don't have a motion on the table yet.
Don't put it, please.
Don't put the motion on the table yet. Commissioner Lanier.
So I'm willing to support this, and I think you understand where I am, City Manager. And I totally understand what Commissioner O'Connor is saying, but I am willing to support this. And I think, to your point, Commissioner Kelly, that this kind of feels more like a pilot because it's such a short commitment. So I'm willing to move forward without it feeling as though it's split. I just have some expectations that I will make sure that I'm clear about communicating those to the city manager, and in whatever exchange that we have with Truscott, communicating those things to them so that we can hopefully see the results that the rest of you have already expressed that you're hoping to see.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks for clarifying that. I'm willing to vote on it today as well, unless I feel like I'm ready to move forward.
Because then it's just going to be another month before we get started. I mean, so what's frustrating us will continue to frustrate us for another month.
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking at it too.
And I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think overall, I support us trying something to do different.
Right.
We talked about it for a while.
Right.
And I think that this doesn't obligate us into that large amount of where it's at, with a firm that can help. I mean, to that point, and any firm is going to bring something a little bit different to the table. So if this doesn't work, there's opportunity for us to go out to bid as early as spring if need be with that. I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable that we move forward, because if we're already split, and maybe we have to be split because that's just a voting body who we are, though, is we're already starting off on a path that doesn't allow us to really work towards a consensus of that. But I'm really kind of looking at my colleague who raised some concerns to see if he still has some concerns.
Well, I guess from my perspective, I just want I understand that we need to make a change in the way in which we communicate, both internally and externally here in Grand Rapids. And I just want a firm commitment from our city manager that as we develop a strategic communications plan, that if that involves some pretty dramatic changes in the way we do our business, that we're committed to making those changes so that we can do this right and not continue to have multiple irons in a fire that might not be the right irons in the fire. And so I want to make sure that we have a big, we've done the old communications well. We don't do new communications that well. And so I want to figure out that, as we have to figure out different avenues to communicate with our constituents, with our residents, with our stakeholders, with our partner governments, that we do that in a way that continue. We've done so many other things so well in Grand Rapids that our folks deserve to have access to that information that they need at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and call the question, and based on the outcome, we'll give a very clear directive to the city manager. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. And city manager, I'll just put an emphasis on the need for Truscott to have a conversation with every single one of us and get our input, and then to start work immediately. All right, that will take us to our next item. This is a resolution authorizing a memorandum of understanding with Grand Rapids Public Schools. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, and with this is John Helmholt and Wendy Falb. Thank you both for coming down, and then also our team from Our Community's Children. But before we get started, I think I'll turn it to our city manager and let him kick this off. This is, the MOU has been, we've been working on it and revising it now for several months, and the MOU before you today is something that has been reviewed by both Wendy Falb and myself, as well as Superintendent Neal and John Helmholt and our city manager. So, Greg?
Perfect speech.
Thank you.
Let's discuss. Yeah, no, it's very simplified significantly, but I think it sufficiently works to move forward in the issues concerning our joint customers' children, and protects the city's interest as well.
All right. Thank you. And I'll call up John, Wendy, or Lynn. Do you want to come and say a few words about the MOU? We're really proud of our strong partnership with JRPS. We continue to meet regularly, and we've actually strengthened that relationship this past year with our Connecting Children to Nature initiatives. So Wendy Falb, president of our school board, welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I want to express our appreciation for the MOU. We've enjoyed a particularly strong relationship, the schools and the city, over the last few years with the former mayor, and current superintendent, and we were just really eager to continue that relationship to ensure that it's strong going forward. I think it's a simplified MOU that will give a lot of clarity to the relationship and hopefully bear a lot of fruit. So Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I really appreciate the process that we've gone through and appreciate your support and dedication to our community's children and the work that we're doing for the children in the city of Grand Rapids. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for your work. John Helmholt, you want to weigh in on communications too while you're up here?
No, I'm going to avoid that one. I just want to really say thanks to the mayor and the city manager, and really to Lynn for her patience as we've gone through this. It's been a process. It's been some back and forth, but I do believe that our relationship is even stronger and better now. It's bringing clarity to this partnership, to the liaison committee, to how we continue to work together, and this, along with many other things that we've done in recent years in particular, I think really exemplify how strong our relationship is with the city and the schools, and how well we work together between the electeds as well as the administration. We're very fortunate. I think that's one thing, as I've traveled with Lynn and learned about the other 7 cities, part of the city's connecting nature is it's very unique to have the schools in the city working so collaboratively and so well. And almost every one of the cities, including the XQ schools, where we've learned they just don't have a very good relationship with their cities, and vice versa. So we're fortunate to have that here in our community, and really this new MOU just further ties us together. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, John. All right, commissioners, any questions?
It's good. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you. I think when we looked at this MOU about 1.5 years ago, we knew it was time to take a fresh look and probably clean it up a little bit and make it a little bit more concise. So, all right, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Thank you. All right, next that will take us to our next action item. This is a resolution approving a professional service agreement with 21st Century Policing Solutions, LLC, to provide expert consulting and facilitation services that will assist the City of Grand Rapids Task Force in reviewing policies and procedures. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support. Thank you. All right, so commissioners, I'll give you a little reminder about what brought us here today. So after the Lambert study, there were a number of recommendations in that study. One of them was to move forward with a task force that would be in partnership with the community, so members from the police department and the community looking at our current policies and procedures, determining, if any changes need to be made. There's no statement saying that we want to see massive changes. This is a process to really look at them, to see if changes need to be made. So no predetermined outcomes there, but really pull together a task force to take a fresh look at that. And our direction was to our city attorney to look at options for bringing in a consultant, because one of the clear recommendations out of Lambert is that you need a police expert to assist in this, and that there are a number of them throughout the country that have worked with other cities and other police departments. And so our city attorney did that, and we, in the meantime, talked about creating a task force. Each of you provided me with some names of individuals, as did the chief and the city manager. And as I've gotten those, and I think I communicated to all of you that task force won't be appointed until after we have an expert in place that we can talk to about the best structure for that. And so the city attorney has been working diligently, reviewing a number of potential options and getting feedback on the different options, and is making a recommendation today to move forward with the proposal that we have before us. So to kick us off, I'm going to turn to our city attorney and let her give us a little bit more background on some of the work that she's done and why she is recommending this proposal today.
Mayor, if I can just interject for just a moment. We have public safety at 11, and I just want to do a time check because it's already after 11, so that we're mindful. I know some of us who are going probably had it on our radar, but just so that everyone else is aware.
Yeah, thank you. We're close to the end of this meeting, and is our chiefs here?
Yes.
Okay, maybe let's try to, I see Chief Frinsky. Is Chief Lehman here too?
It's police only today.
Oh, it's only police today.
Oh, okay.
That's right, I looked at that agenda. So let's try to start at 11:30 with public safety. Is that okay, Chief? All right.
He's not listening.
Is that okay, 11:30? Okay, all right, we'll try to get this moving. So, city attorney.
Okay, I think I can cut my 30 minutes down to 20.
Okay, good, yeah, please. Yeah, all of us have had this information to read, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to do that. And I know you have reached out and answered additional follow-up questions. So,
thank you, Mayor. And as part of the search, I thought when I was mandated to do this project that it'd be as simple as I do a Google search and get a nice little list and be done with it, but it was nothing like that. Instead, it was more like trying to find a pearl in the sand. So after talking to about 17 people from across the country over a number of weeks, I narrowed the list down to 7 companies in which I looked at their knowledge and experience and looked at things such as their involvement in policy writing and review, community policing, bias-based policing, law enforcement background, police reform, just to name a few of the things I looked at as far as their experiences. From that group of 7 companies, I asked the question of who would be of most value to us as a community and an organization. And the company and the person that rose to the top of the group was Ron Davis and the 21st Century Policing Solutions, LLC. They've read the Lambert recommendations. They understand the traffic study and its results. They've been tracking where we are with our community engagement and some of the other things that we do. They're very detailed, very competent. I believe they're adequately prepared to provide us with the consulting and facilitation services that we need to be successful in our task force group. They're well qualified to help our task force group meet the needs and the objectives of our city as we try to conduct bias-free policing and improve police and community relations. Mr. Davis and the 21st Century policing group were tasked with the responsibility of establishing and making recommendations to former President Barack Obama. With that particular task, Mr. Davis was the director of that task force group. I believe it helps them be equipped to assist us in recommendations that are based on best practices from around the country. One of the factors that made them unique is their emphasis on strengthening community policing and trust among law enforcement in the Grand Rapids community. I appreciated that and all the work that they do, that's the highest priority for them, which I think is in line with what we also wanted to do. They convinced me that they're not just going to be a consulting firm that gives us, at the end of the day, a 200-page report of recommendations and then they leave. They will take it a step further by providing action steps and training and technical support needed to make those changes. For instance, if we determine that there's a certain area that needs to be changed in our policies, they will actually assist us in that. Those policy writings. If there's training, they will assist in those trainings as far compared to best practices around the country. The message, as I talked to them, the message, and I made notes doodled on a paper, the message that I heard, not necessarily how they said it, but how I took it, and I'll share that with you, that this would not just be GRPD, you're doing these things right and you're doing these things wrong, but it would be that you're doing these things right, but we need improvement in these areas, and how do we do that together as a community, as an organization, and as a police department? And how do we do that in such a way that it bridges the gaps between us and it builds trust between the community and the police? It also would be focused on educating our community in such a way that it contributes to lessening that gap as well. I'm excited about their level of work that they can provide for us. They're excited about moving forward on this journey with us. And one of the things that there was a quote during that time from President Obama that I liked, and I'd like to share that. And what it says is, when any part of the American family does not feel like it is being treated fairly, that is a problem for all of us. And I think that's where we are today as a community. A part of the Grand Rapids family doesn't feel like it's being treated fairly, which is a problem for all of us. And I believe that the 21st Century Policing Solutions LLC is the right resource to show us the way to meet our objectives to foster a strong collaborative relationship between law enforcement and the community. The community that they protect in such a way that our policing practices promote effective crime reduction while building public trust.
Thank you. Thank you, City Attorney. And thank you for all your work on this. And I think, Commissioners, I've had a number of conversations with our City Attorney, and I know many of you have, and I think it's important that we make this very clear that, our police department, we are doing a lot of really exceptional work. And this process is about affirming that work, but also looking at areas for opportunity for growth and improvement, and having some experts to assist us in that, as well as to work with improving community and police relations, I think is a critical part of that work that needs to be done. So thank you. I'll turn it to my colleagues for questions and comments, and I'll start with, Commissioner Allen.
I fully support this. I was a big advocate for a policy and procedure review. I think that's important. It affects daily how our police officers interact with our community because they're following policy and procedure as they should. So as it relates to having a national expert come in and work with this newly formed temporary committee, I think that's important. So, but what I want to speak to is something that this led me to kind of on a bigger level. Sitting before us is all these boards about community listening and feedback sessions. And a lot of the work, a lot of the conversation, a lot of the rhetoric that's been going on over the past several months here in Grand Rapids has really been focusing on our police department and what they need to do to change and what they're doing wrong or what's not right and how the community feels, and I think that's good. But I feel, and this comes from actually talking to a lot of police officers, not police leadership, who we deal with on a regular basis, I'm talking day-to-day officers, they're feeling tired, they're feeling beat up, they're feeling that, yep, we know we need to change, yep, we're trying to change, yep, we're doing the best we can, but let me tell you what my daily reality is like, and I hear these horrible stories about comments that are made to them or how they're being treated in the community, and So I think it's really important that we acknowledge that our police department has really been working hard to change. And it's hard to change an organization that large. It's the biggest department in our city. So, and I think that the key word here is police and community relations. So if you're trying to repair a relationship, and there's two sides to a relationship, and if one side is always being hammered on, but you're not doing any encouragement or any lifting up, you got a problem. You're never really going to heal that relationship. So I think at some point, I'm not suggesting with this contract, but I think at some point we do need to do some intentional listening and hear some of the stories from police as well. Because, I mean, I'll only give you one example and then I'll leave it at that. Did you know that it's a thing now? You know, there's a thing.
There's lots of things.
Yeah, there's a thing now where and it's particularly being carried out by a lot of young people, but that as they walk past a police officer, they spit at their feet. You can't spit on them because that could be considered assault, but they'll spit at their feet and then just look at them, like dare thing. So imagine every day you're a police officer and you stop to go to the gas station or something to get a cup of coffee, and a young person walks out and they spit at your feet, or they say disparaging things to them, and that's going on literally on a daily basis in this community. Now, I'm not saying that the feelings of our community are wrong. That's the other part about relationship building. Feelings aren't right or wrong, they just are. So we do have a group of folks in the community that are feeling betrayed and feeling oppressed, and I'm not denying those feelings either. But the only way we're going to heal this is through intentional relationships and building intentional relationships. So we need to find a vehicle to do that. So it's important that we do these things, but it's also important, I think, that we listen and that we acknowledge both sides of the story.
Yeah, well said, Commissioner. I think all of us feel that way.
If I could just speak to that.
Yep, briefly.
Yes.
And the reason I'm going to try to keep us moving is because Commissioner Lanier reminded me that the 3 newly appointed civilians to public safety, they're here waiting. So I want to make sure that we are very mindful of that.
Okay.
So speak to that, and then I'll do Commissioner Kelly, then Commissioner Lanier.
Okay. As part of my conversation with the policing expert, every conversation, we're on the same page that there's 3 stakeholders involved. There's the city as an organization, there's the community, and then there's the police department. And the focus isn't in one direction, and this is a nice part about them doing what they've done already, to understand that we have to have a balance of interests. So the plan is, just the briefly, the plan is if they're awarded this contract, before we even start the work, they're going to have meetings and question and answers with the 3 groups. That'd be the commission, the mayor and the commission, the police department and their staff, as well as the community leaders in the community. And so before we even start our work, we want to hear and answer any questions or concerns that all the stakeholders may have.
Okay. Thanks. Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, I just want to say that having been a public school teacher, I can relate to some of that angst when you wake up in the morning and you hear the news and you start to feel like teachers are under attack. And so I understand that, but I guess I just want to say, too, that every department in the city is involved in continuous quality improvement. Every single department. We bring it up, and that's our goal, and this is just another department. And we should never stop that process. So I think this, again, is not about taking sides. It's exactly what Commissioner Allen said. It's about building relationships, and that's our place in the middle here. We've heard from people who get upset naturally, especially with what's going on around the country. We know we've got areas where we can improve. We also know we have areas where we really need to show off what we're doing. And I'm very excited about this group, having read all of this, and I want to say special thanks to our city attorney for doing the research and for her comments to us back and forth to help us better understand exactly what this group is going to be able to do. So I'm looking forward to this and the healing that will come out of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Lenny?
Yes, I thank you, City Attorney, for all of your work and your review to come to this agreement. I am excited about this process. This, too, was a recommendation that came out of SAFE as well. And so I'm hopeful that the outcome will be something that all three stakeholders that you just mentioned will be pleased with. I like the makeup of the group, that all ranking file of the police department has a representative there, because I think that's another missing factor, is that we're not hearing from all voices. So hopefully that will solve us from being able to do that and getting feedback from them, as well as the diverse backgrounds of the members of the committee who are civilians. So thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, Mayor, I have one comment and a question about the process overall. You know, I think that at least who's being picked here is really someone that has a background in law enforcement. I think it's key to understand that there is some ways and areas to improve how you do the job. There are some, strategic ways that you literally have to handle because you're dealing with law enforcement and safety, and there's some knowns that you have to do it this way, and there's some also we have to do it this way because if you don't, it won't be upheld in court, and certain ways that they operate, which are just standardized norms. I think where that kind of falls back is that, and what you saw here and a lot of what's said here is that we don't necessarily know what that is and where's that leeway. And so where have we decided the area is gray, or where is it really key that you have to follow through this way? And so I think that's what I'm looking out of this report here. So to give for instance, and I'll ask a question, like if we were to dive back into an incident that happened earlier in the year in March and talk through different ways to approach that, is that what we're talking about through this process here, where we kind of understand what are, so that everybody in the community understands how the police react to that, how they do that in other cities? Is that what we're talking about through this?
That is part of it, yes.
Because I think that's ultimately, well, it's never, fun to go through that work, or, looking at the leadership that's there, chief, deputy chief, others who have decades of experience and bring best practices. There may be a lot of boxes that we've already checked that we've done very well. I think we just need to have something that goes out and understands and really engages the community at large, so that we all understand what that is. It's not as though something that you get in school or in class and whatnot. And so I guess the other thing that I'd hope is to the point that you made, how do you interact with the officers? What's the respectful manner to do that? How do those things break down? And so I think there will be other good things to come out of this process, as long as everyone's at the table. So I think the way in which that you've worked through this is why I'm supportive. Thank you.
And Commissioner, I think that's an excellent point to make. I think in the past we've gone through accreditation. We've done a lot of things internally, which are really important. It's important work that we've done. Where this I see as different for two reasons. One is it's one of the specific recommendations coming from Lambeth, and the recommendation was to bring in an external expert, a third-party expert. And then secondly, it really is in partnership with the community. It's not just internal work that's going to happen. So, Commissioner O'Connor, and then I'll call the question.
Yeah, and just as I quickly, as we reviewed who was going to assist us in this, reading through the resumes of especially the principal consultants of this, knowing that the main consultants are police officers who've been in what appear to be a lot of the more major cities in this country, and certainly the principal consultant having led the COPS office, which is something we have talked about here, about applying for a COPS grant, who managed that department for 8 years under President Obama, and has a real commitment to community policing, as well as Mr. Ramsey, who also implemented a community policing strategy and model in Philadelphia with over 6,500 officers, is a pretty incredible thing. So the makeup of this does give me some confidence in the potential outcomes.
And I had an opportunity to talk to the mayor of Philadelphia and got some very positive feedback. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. And so we're going to have the city attorney follow up on this. And again, part of this will be meetings with all of us. And we'll have the city attorney keep us abreast of progress. All right, commissioners, I'm going to quickly go to our last item before us. This should be pretty quick. It's an ordinance to amend section 4.4 of ordinance 2016-88. And this is the establishment of a new classification called utility aid. Can I get a motion? All right, moved and supported. Mary Beth?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Very quickly, this is the new classification we are creating as part of our continuing strategy. We have multiple level strategies, internal and external, under the umbrella of Grow Our Own. And for those difficult to fill jobs, we have designed entry-level positions that can actually be training positions that we actually do formal training processes with. You are aware that both our utilities, we have many vacancies. As we peel back, and this is the thing you all need to understand, when departments are saying we're having difficulty filling positions and that they have a lot of vacancies, oftentimes it's because the eligible pool of people with those skills and qualifications has dried up. Or in cases of the electrician, the market, the economic development is too boom. So this is really an entry-level position that will allow us to develop and orientate and educate entry-level employees for these as a feeder pool, qualified pool for both our water system and our environmental protection system that Mike Lunn and Joellen, well, not Joellen anymore, run. They were instrumental in bringing this. We've done this before. We did it with the assessor's office. We've done it several times, create these aid positions, and it has worked out very well for us. And given the fact, as I indicated in the memo, that the colleges have, some of them have dropped actually the curriculums for people being able to get these certifications, which is a travesty because the only way to learn these jobs is really to have both the academic and the practicum aspect. So that's what we're doing. This is a continuation. The Civil Service Board thought that this was a good continuation of our strategy. I have to give credit also. I work with Mike and Joellen and her team as well to develop this, and we think this will pay off. One key aspect of this, and this is the final thing, our pipeline for the deployment of this new classification will be with Shannon and Lynn Heemstra's through the Office of Family Youth. The name has changed so many times, I can't remember, but you know what I'm talking about. They have lead young people from 18 to 24 that they have partnerships in the community, and that's going to be our initial pipelining for the first 2 years. We've negotiated this with the unions as well because you have to protect these kind of programs, and so it's all good. I appreciate your support, ongoing support for the Grow Our Own strategy initiative.
Great. Thank you, Mary Beth. Appreciate it. And appreciate really all the departments in supporting the LEAD program and young people. And hopefully all of you have met some of them because we just finished up our second cohort. So commissioners, any questions, comments? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we're going to adjourn. One last thing before we adjourn, just a reminder, if any of you want to swing by Friday, I have I'm spending the full day with a group of 40 millennials building a Habitat house over on the west side. Hopefully you all got the notice. You're welcome to stop by anytime that day. Again, this is aligned with our commitment to be a city of service and the importance of giving back to the community. Public safety is downstairs in 601. We have a number of individuals from the community who recently have been appointed, and we'll get started on that ASAP.